What I read today, it's from the World Economic Forum, the Global Gender Gap Report. The 2020 report is out, by the way. And a lot of the data, for those of you who don't know it, it's an index that serves as a compass to sort of track the progress on relative gaps between men and women globally on key areas like health, education, political participation, and economy as well. So a lot of the data has been captured this morning. Dr. Deborah Work woke us up with some of the staggering data that she was telling us about the number of women who die in childbirth. Very, very alarming here in our country. But I'd like to also tell you what this report, I'll read a few excerpts from you, for you. Ethiopia has achieved some gains. Let's talk about the positive as well. So in terms of political empowerment and participation of women, I think we've achieved a lot of gains. And we've said, you all know almost half of the cabinet is women, are women. We have a women president, which is tremendous. And also about 40% of the parliament seats are occupied by women. So these are great gains, and again, in the political empowerment. But again, as I said earlier, high maternal mortalities, very little birth attended by skilled health professional. Our sisters and our daughters are facing these realities, unfortunately. We're also struggling in Ethiopia to progress on gender parity in education. The numbers are quite high, and also in economic opportunities. We talked about investments in human capital. They're insufficient in general, but women's are really much lower. Women are more penalized than men. About 44% of women, as opposed to 59% of men, are literate, and almost 20% of girls are not receiving formal primary education. And at higher levels of education, then the participation is even lower. So against this backdrop, I have a few questions that I've prepared for our panelists, and unfortunately we're challenged in terms of time, so we may not have a lot of time to engage the audience, but bear with us. So our distinguished panelists, all women, all academicians and practitioners, have a number of years of experience in different areas. And I'd like to direct some of the questions to you, and you can choose whoever would like to respond to these. And also building on some of the points that were raised this morning. So the first question that I'd like to ask is, why is women's role and a discussion on empowering women in Ethiopia critical in the context of this conference, Ethiopia 2050? So if you could just share briefly, why do you think it's critical? Maybe, should I start with Dr. Ahmed?
Sure. Well, I was trying to find some of the data, and I couldn't find actual numbers, but I think that it's generally accepted by the World Economic Forum and a number of different international organizations that when more women work, economies themselves grow. And when women work and they're able to contribute to their household, it doesn't just it has an exponential impact on the household itself. So again, I can't find the numbers, but I know that those are stats that are thrown out. And so, women being able to be empowered in that way just drives the families, it drives economies, it drives industries, and so it's important. And I would say also, just in general, that representation matters. I think rightfully so, someone pointed out in the room, in this gathering, there are very few women, and it's a conversation that a lot of even Western world has, where it's very challenging for a young woman to come into a space and not see anyone that looks like her. And so you're also setting a stage by increasing representation that helps the next generation feel welcome in that room and helps them to feel like they can do what they see other people doing. And so there's so many spillover effects and the importance of having women in the room and empowered as well.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Mallet. Let me go to the second question. I've had the privilege of working in international development, so I'm not a gender expert, but I've worked on women's and girls' issues. So we do recognize knowledge is power, Many of us, as I said, have had the opportunity to obtain higher education and enabled us to better our lives and contribute as much as we can to society as large.